Okay, so then he issues instructions, and he says to a quiet place. So it wasn't just, let's all sit down and bow our heads and close our eyes. And that's what we would say to school. And the kids get really adamant about it. Bow your heads and close your eyes. I said bow your heads and close your eyes. But that's not what he said. He said, come to a quiet place. He gave instructions for a quiet place. That's key. We do need some quiet places. I have recently started graduate work at my age, but that's one of the things that I knew I had to have. Okay, so if I need that for my graduate work, if I need that retreat, I knew that I needed to have a place where I could leave my phone, I could leave everything else. I didn't have to be in the, where everybody was walking around. Not that there's something in our house anymore, but I needed a quiet place. And so why would I not need a quiet place to pray and to study and to get closer to the heart of God? So he tells them, and we have the example of Jesus also. Jesus went away to quiet places. One of the scriptures that you read in this lesson was when he was in Galilee preaching and teaching. I've now been there, and I can tell you what an amazing thing it was. It says he went off to a quiet place. I can tell you that he climbed a mountain. He climbed a hill at least, and he was looking over, into that water. And you know how that feels. For some reason, at least with me, water quiets my soul. When I'm at the beach, when I'm at a lake, when I'm wherever I am, it quiets my soul. And that's where Jesus went, so that he could pray to the Father. So a quiet place is key. And, oh, come on. There we go. Psalm 46:10.
Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth.
Thanks, God. Thanks all of you for reading. I appreciate it. So this be still, I actually did a little bit of an in-depth study on that because I did a ladies' day where we talked about be still. And that word for still, that Hebrew word for still, is actually a word that implies releasing your hold, like holding something really tight. And that be still means to kind of let go. It doesn't mean quiet. It does imply that quietness too. But there's a letting go. And I think that's so true in prayer. We have to let go of, all the things that are distracting us. We have to let go of, how we think things should work out and how things should be. I mean, there's a lot of things that we just kind of need to let go of. And so in a quiet place, it's really easier to do that too. And then he gives a promise to them. And that promise is rest. So would somebody go back and read verses 30 and 31 in Mark, and just to see that the whole thing, to read the whole thing, because I split it up here as she did too.
Mark 6:30, 31.
Yes, isn't that where it talks, where it says all these things? Yeah, I thought so.
The apostles returned to Jesus and told him all that they had done and taught. And he said to them, come away by yourselves to a desolate place and rest a while. For many were coming and going, and they had no leisure even to eat.
So again, that's what, come. And then, of course, the verse we have to read for rest is the one we probably all know. But would someone read that, 11:28?
Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest.
Absolutely. So that's the promise. The promise is rest. The promise, that's the promise of heaven too, is rest, or one of the promises. Okay. Why do you think that Jesus found it necessary to go to a solitary place to pray, or a quiet and out of the way place? Sorry, go ahead.
Focus.
To focus. Okay, that's one of the things when I asked the first week, when I asked everybody to say, what do you want to learn about prayer? That was one of the things that someone said, is how do I stay focused? Well, here's one of the ways. Okay, a quiet place. You go to a solitary place. You go in your closet. Weren't we told to go in our closet, right? In the New Testament, we're told to go in that closet and pray, so that no one sees you. You know. Anybody else have, this was a question that was actually in the book, if you guys had any other answers or anything else.
So there's no distractions.
Distraction free. Leave your phone somewhere else.
See, Christ followed wherever he went, so that he could find a way to be by himself sometimes.
And he knew he needed that, right? He knew he needed it. So we needed to.
Also showing God respect. You know, I am moving away from the distractions or anything.
So hallowed be your name, just like we're showing him that honor. This is another way to show honor, how we position ourselves in prayer. All right, let's move on. Because yeah, we're not looking through this. Why do you think that quieting our hearts is essential to learning how to pray?
My preacher said one time that stress is not trusting God with the outcome of the situation. So I think that to quiet our hearts, it's an act of faith and choosing to let go of that stress because we're choosing to trust God with the outcome.
Because he is God. I mean, recognizing that he knows better. He knows better than I do. He knows more. He knows all. He knows everything from beginning to end, and he sees all of it. And I see just like this little teeny tiny spot, and so, trust. Yeah, I that's exactly right. And in our world, especially, it's information overload. That was probably the biggest challenge I have had in graduate work, is that there's too much information. When I was doing my other work, it was before the age of the internet, and I had to base all my prep papers and everything else around the resources that were available, because there were a limited amount in the library at Lipscomb, and now you have bazillions of resources. And so narrowing that, it's information overload. We just have so much. And that, I think, more than ever is important for us to just get away from that, quiet our hearts, get rid of all the things that are going on. Okay, so the next thing that she had us look at was Elijah. And so Elijah is always a great example. Elijah had just these passages, and I'm not going to have us read them because we're running out of time. Elijah had just had this mountaintop experience, literally. He had been, facing down the prophets of Baal, and God had showed up in big ways and just, consumed everything with fire. And then Jezebel says, I'm going to kill you. And Elijah runs. He is in fear of his life. So he goes from that mountaintop, faith, building experience to, I'm out of here. And so what happens when it's so hard to quiet our hearts? That's what this next section is about. So what happens when we're consumed by fear? What do we do? How do we combat that? Psalm 34:4.
I sought the Lord and he answered me and delivered me from all my fears.
And David certainly also knew what running for his life was all about. So he gives us, most of these verses are for Psalms, I think, because obviously we could use David as another one too. Running. When you are, let me see what she said here. Running. Do you feel like your life is in constant motion? We buy products that promise to save us a minute or two. Be more efficient, be able to do this, be able to do more things at once. No. Anyway, when we're running. Psalm 37:7, just the first part.
Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him.
Waiting is not something we do very well. I don't think. Waiting is, it's hard. But God is there to help us with that. Okay, when we are discouraged, do you ever feel like you are just banging your head against a wall? No matter how hard you work, no matter what you do, no matter how much of yourself you invest, when you look around, it doesn't seem to be making any difference. Discouragement can be a big thing that blocks our prayer life and our hearts getting closer to God. So 2 Corinthians 4:16-18.
So we do not lose heart, though our outer self is wasting away, our inner self is being renewed day by day. For this light momentary affliction is preparing for us an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison. As we look not into the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. For the things that are seen are transient, but the things that are unseen are eternal.
That eternal perspective, looking beyond what's right here and what's right now and what's right in front of our faces and what is discouraging us and what is, causing us to run and causing us to be full of fear. Look to heaven, look to God, look to that eternal perspective. Tired and hungry, okay? That makes me hangry. I can tell you I struggle with this. And the disciples, I bet, were too. It said they didn't even have time to eat. Okay, Psalm 127:2.
It is vain for you to rise up early to retire late, to eat the bread of painful labors, for he gives to his beloved even in his sleep.
Sleep is important. Did you guys ever notice that? That he gives to his beloved even in sleep. Sleep does rejuvenate us, and it's very needed. When we are angry and frustrated, perhaps nothing makes it as difficult to be quiet and still before God as being angry and frustrated. That loud voice that takes over our heads, the thoughts that we don't need to have. Psalm 4:4.
Be angry and do not sin. Ponder in your own hearts on your beds and be silent.
Our anger should not be reactive. I mean, Jesus was angry. Angry is an emotion we're going to have, but be silent. Tell God about it. I really believe that we can be angry in our prayers. I mean, I think that we can. I think we can tell him when we feel we've been wronged, when something has really made us angry. I think he wants to know those things too. He doesn't want to just know the good. He wants us to pour out our hearts and our souls to him. And so I think he's ready to listen, even when we're angry. Okay, loneliness is another thing that Elijah was feeling. Certainly, he felt all by himself. That no one, he even said, no one but me, Lord, no one but me is faithful. No one. So Hebrews 13:5.
Provides 3 for the love of money and content of what you have, for he has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you.
I think the next verse, so we can confidently say, the Lord is my helper, I will not fear what can be times that person's come up as they were growing up, but they were afraid of something.
Because they had it in their
So,
heart.
yeah, that's something, if you have a verse like that, that can bring you back when all these things are bombarded, you, like, feeling that, like, try to have a key verse or two that you can just recite, and that's what I try to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, guys, so, oh no. Okay, everybody's freaked out by that, you can go ahead and leave. All right, so anyway, so then the next story is Elijah, Elijah goes off by himself, and then God presents himself to Elijah. God sends a whirlwind, but God was not in the whirlwind. God sends a fire, but God was not in the fire. God sends an earthquake, but God was not in the earthquake. Where was God? In the still small voice, in the quietness of, once all those crazy things happened to Elijah, in the quietness of his heart, that's where God was. And so this is so true. I had an aunt, I'm sorry, you guys. I had an aunt who was a quiet talker. And I will never, ever forget. All of us, I think she had just come into town. We picked her up at the airport, and we were all eating out, and we were at one of those big round tables, okay? And we're all sitting there, and she opens her mouth to try to say something, and every single person at the whole table went. Because what do you have to do when somebody is talking and quietly? You have to draw closer, come nearer, settle in close to hear his heart. And that's exactly what God was pointing out to Elijah. I'm not in all those big things, all those big, loud, crazy. I'm right here. I'm next to you. In that quietness. Okay, what I really wanted us to do was I wanted you guys to give me words to put up here to erase these words and put the words from her lesson from the Bible. You can even look up antonyms on online, but I wanted us to get rid of those words and put some of the words that we need to be thinking about. But we don't have time to do that, so thank you all for being here, and yeah, maybe if you come up with some, we'll talk about those words next week. But yeah.